This content is brought to you by Unfound's supporters at Patreon, PayPal, YouTube, and Unfound's gracious advertisers. Aidan Jerome Clune was a 19-year-old from Sonoma, California. He was an only child and a creative kid. On April 26, 2022, Aiden had a disagreement with his grandparents in Utah. The next day, Aiden's truck was found on the side of the highway outside Wells, Nevada, with shoe prints heading off into the distance. He was never seen again. I'm Ed Dunsel, and this is Unfound. A common feeling expressed by family members to me, although some don't come right out and say it during the interviews, is a sense of helplessness. Whether their loved ones are mixed up in drugs or habitual criminal activity or mental health struggles, these mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and friends, they feel as powerless as if they're watching a plane crash in the distance. No words or actions change the trajectories of these troubled people's lives. Robbie Hurt, a family man who could not overcome his longtime heroin addiction, found deceased. Brandon Barron, a son whose mental and drug issues got so bad he threatened to kill his parents, found deceased. Renee LaManna, a young woman whose paranoid schizophrenia got worse and worse. And in fact, she ran off while her sister was in the process of providing Renee with a better place to live. Renee is still missing. We're left thinking that nobody could have changed the outcomes of these and many other unfound disappearances. Well, with Aidan Clune, we are confronted with the same situation. A great kid who began to lose touch with reality. Is there anything that anybody could have done to stop the spiral? And now a summary of the case. This is brought to you by my friend Megan Linez's website, charleyproject.org. Aidan Clune was the kind of kid who kept to himself and looked for no trouble from anyone. He was creative and musical. Aidan was close to his mother, but did not have much of a connection to his father. Aidan liked to work and had several different jobs as a teenager. However, a prank done to him by a strange girl that went viral on TikTok sent Aidan into a funk in which his mental health began to deteriorate. He suddenly began to be suspicious of people. Aidan would make plans, then back out. This culminated in him deciding to take a trip to see his grandparents in Utah. Aidan's mother thought this was a great idea. So, on April 26th, 2022, Aidan showed up at his father's parents'. However, things went badly quickly. While riding in his own truck with his grandfather, Aidan's personality quickly changed, and he forced his grandfather to get out of the truck on the side of a highway, abandoning him. The next day, over the border in Nevada, in the middle of nowhere, a highway patrol officer came across Aidan's truck. Aidan's possessions were strewn around it. He wasn't there. He was never seen again. An eventual area search discovered shoe prints going off toward a distant mountain range. The trail lasted for over 10 miles before vanishing in the sandy high desert. Searches since have yielded interesting information, but no firm ideas as to where Aidan could be. Neither the free market nor governments have been able to get a handle on how to effectively treat adults with mental health issues who don't want help. Contemplate how people's rights can be respected while also getting them the therapy they need, while you also try to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1, was an opportunity missed by the highway patrol officer to end the disappearance just a few hours into its existence by him not taking the abandoned truck more seriously? Number 2, could Aidan's disappearance have been caused by him putting the wrong destination into his GPS? And number 3, should we be open to the idea that Aidan didn't exactly run off, but somebody encountered him out there in those mountains? Aidan's family has no firm idea regarding a theory as to why he has not been found yet. The guest for this episode is Aidan's mother, Aidan Clune. Next, have all of you heard of the Fire in the Sky UFO incident? Well, it is the topic of the newest Found episode available to Patreon and YouTube supporters. Join at either site to partake in my analysis of this now well-known story. Finally, I got to meet one of Unfound's longest listeners this past weekend in Orlando. He got in on the ground floor way back in 2016. We had a good time talking about all sorts of stuff. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the mother of Aidan Clune, Aidan Clune. Amy, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
And good to talk to you, Amy. Listeners should know that she and I have spoken quite a few times, and she sent me a lot of information, of course, regarding the searches that we're going to talk about. And by the time all you listeners are hearing our voices, I will have put at least some, if not all, of this material out there, so you can see all the work that Amy has been doing going into Nevada to try to find her son. We're going to get into that, of course, in this discussion, but sometimes it's hard to really explain some of it in audio. So you're going to really hear about Amy going out there and going over many square miles trying to figure out, of course with help, going out there trying to find her son. But we're going to start here, Amy. It's good to talk to you. And on this episode, we're recording this on April 28th of 2024. Let's just first talk about your family. Of course, Aidan is your son, but do you have any other kids, daughters, sons?
No.
What can you say about your family?
Aidan is my only son.
Wow.
He's my only child.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's my only son, and I come from a family of 6 siblings, and strangely, a lot of us only have one son, one child.
Well, what do you think's up with that, Amy?
I guess remembering the competition for stuff like the bathroom
and food.
It was, yeah, and then there was always arguments and stuff, and I don't know why that is, but I think that, a lot of families are smaller these days too.
That's
but,
true. True.
He was my only son, my only child.
Okay.
And so.
I have to ask, how did you come up with the name Aidan? Does that have some family significance, or is it named after a famous person, or what? Where'd you get Aidan?
Well, it's a combination. So I have my mother's maiden name, and that was for my grandfather, Jerome Clune.
Okay.
And we're from County Clare in Ireland, our family, a couple generations back, three generations back, and from the town of Quinn. And so I've always liked Aidan Clune, the actor.
Sure, I know who he is. Sure.
And so there was kind of this melding of ideas in my mind, and so I decided to name him Aidan Jerome Clune after my dad. But Aidan came from Aidan Clune.
That's interesting. I like it.
I'm sorry, after Aidan's grandfather.
Okay.
My dad.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's my grandfather, Aidan's great grandfather. Can we do that?
Okay. So that's how you came up with the name Aiden.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good Irish name, and listeners maybe know that I'm 2/3 Irish myself. So we're both from Ireland, and that's how Aiden. I should have known, knowing that that's like kind of an Irish name. Maybe I should not have been surprised where you got it, but it's certainly your grandfather, his great grandfather's name, and then of course the actor, etc. Thank you for that. Very good. I love talking about because we do run into some unusual names. When you do 350 interviews over 7.5 years, you're going to run into some names that aren't common. And so I always make sure the listeners understand where some of these names come from. Okay.
And I would like to say one other thing about Aidan's name.
Yeah, please.
There's out there on the interweb, I like to call it, people have mistakenly misspelled his name, and it's always been this way in schools everywhere. There's no E in Aidan.
Okay.
It's AIDAN.
Yeah.
And it's gotten confused so many times that when I went to his graduation, his high school, they misspelled it on his middle school.
Oh my.
Graduation. So when it came up to his high school, I went into that office and kept reminding them. I said, please.
Yeah, I get it.
Don't misspell his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay. Always been a thing.
Okay. Let's talk about Aiden. What was he into? Young man, boy, what was he into? Sports, video games, what kind of interests? How would you describe his personality as a little kid, maybe getting into his preteen years? How would you explain all that?
Yeah, he was always pretty creative. Like he learned how to draw at a very young age.
Wow.
Always drawing. Then got into Legos, and in Legos he was always years ahead. Like the age group.
Yes.
And he would get stuck sometimes, but he was really like focused. He didn't want to get up and stop doing them. And I got him these huge Lego sets, like some Star Wars, and he didn't want to stop until it was done. And I only had to help him a few times when he got stuck and we'd go backwards. And he was good at that. He was a reader. I read to him a lot. It's no surprise that later in middle school and stuff, he was a good writer. He was reading. His reading comprehension was always like way off the charts. By middle school, he was at college level reading, and he very high comprehension. And so he struggled with athletics. He had a food. He had a food intolerance when he was younger, and it became very acute. And so physically he was unable to, he had no endurance, no energy, and we found that problem, and I eliminated some stuff from his diet, and this went on for 9 months, a year, and when I figured it out, he woke up one morning and was like, "Hi, Mama," and he was just clear as a bell.
Wow.
And so after that, and he was also falling in the percentile. He was down to the 16th, or I think the lowest he got was the 11th percentile, and he just wasn't growing.
Wow.
And he, so after that, he did start to grow, and he started to get energy, and I think his junior year he actually joined track for a short time. And he skateboarded a lot. He started learning to play guitar, along with the left side stuff again. He learned how to play guitar in middle school with this great middle school program that they had, and he really enjoyed it. And so that's where his music took off. And he also loved to play Pokemon Go. He did a lot of that. He had a great sense of humor, very advanced. Like I said, his comprehension was pretty high but also with humor. He got stuff that a lot of his friends didn't get. And he has such a good sense of humor. He does have a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
And so it was, he also, he was a deep thinker too, very thoughtful, kind of ponderer, pondering about. He would ask me questions, he'd be in the car, ask me a really serious question. Why is this like that? Why is this like that, Mom?
What kind? Yeah, maybe get into that. What kind of relationship did you and he have?
Well, we were close because it was me and him,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just me and him.
Okay.
And he had some close friends, and that we became friends with the family and stuff. There were relationships like that and stuff, and I have a very close friend, and we went to their family gatherings all the time, and so we had like an extended kind of family, like a family that wasn't biological. My family's kind of all over the place. They're Florida, they're on both coasts, Michigan, all over,
Mm-hmm.
And so we were pretty close, and we really connected through humor. And so Aiden was like, he didn't lie to me. He like some kids tell fibs, but Aiden was kind of self-possessed, like in a way, like where if he didn't want to talk about it, he'd say, "I'm not going to talk about that with you, Mom."
Yeah.
He could just be honest like that, pretty honest like that with me. So he was forthright a lot with me.
Okay.
As well. Yeah.
Okay.
And we used to play board games. We'd like to play. We would play Sorry all the time, and Scrabble, and we would sit by the fire. And he really wanted a dog, but I was a single mom working a lot, and that was, so that I think his love for dogs, he came out of yearning for wanting one, but I didn't feel like I could take care of it. I'm not a person who wants to leave a dog alone all day.
Right.
I just can't.
Yeah. That's I think that makes sense. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, we did have cats and other little pets, that were easier to take care of, and he was always very gentle and loving with animals, and he was I have to say he was pretty easy to, in a lot of ways. Growing up as a child, he was an easy child, like he picked things up quick and was very good and listened to me.
Okay. Now, I know there's something we have to talk about that might have been a big influence on him. Of course, we have to remember he was just 19 years old when he went missing. Very young guy here. But there was something that went on that you had brought up. Once again, how much you want to say about it is up to you. But it had something to do with some girl, I guess was kind of his girlfriend, but then kind of tricked him or something, and you said this really might have had a really detrimental effect on his mental health.
Well, Aiden had a couple of that wasn't the first time that he was kind of like had a problem with someone who kind of like came at him and was a part of some kind of greater plan, like literally with like forethought. There was one that happened in grade school where a student came to him and wanted him to do something bad because they were mad at their friend. He's just sitting there minding his own business, but he got really in trouble for that, and the student who masterminded all this, nothing. Mm-hmm. And so I actually took him out of that school because I could see what was happening, and it was not good. So that was like in third grade. That was the first time I put Aiden into art therapy so that he could deal with that. He was kind of traumatized by the way he was being treated. And the next school he went to was a great school. That's where he learned to play guitar. Things were much better there for him. And so then later, middle school was kind of there wasn't anything major going on there. But this girl that you're talking about, she was not his girlfriend.
Okay.
She wasn't. He didn't go to the same school as her. He had a girlfriend, and she wasn't it. And what this young lady, I was hoping that she felt remorseful about what she did, but she doubled down on a social media platform and kind of continued with it after Aidan's disappearance, and that was really disheartening to see a person do that, because what she doesn't know is that I was sitting at the kitchen table with my son when she called him, and I could see the confusion on my son's face. And I said, "Who is that?" And he goes, "Oh, hang on." Like he's listening to this person. It was clear to me that he didn't really know this person that well. And so when I'm just going to call out and say, what she's saying what she said on her social media platform is not true.
Okay.
I was there. I saw my son's reaction. He didn't know her that well. She had some kind of, I don't know if it was jealousy or what the heck it was. She was a troubled person herself. She went to a different high school for kids who needed a different teaching track.
Okay.
And she was in a facility.
Well, what exactly, you're going to have to explain, Amy, what exactly happened. What happened here? What was she trying to do? I mean, what was the situation?
She was trying to, I think, put a wedge in between him and his girlfriend. And I don't know who she was upset with, my son or his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. But she asked him for a ride from this facility. And so I could see this was an unusual situation when I was watching Aiden react, because it was so weird. And I said, "Who is that? Who are you talking to?" And he goes, "Just a minute." And so when he got off the phone, he said, "Oh, it's so-and-so. I don't really know her, but she needs a ride." And he said, "I think people think I'm a really good guy. She must trust me." He started feeling good about it. Like, "Oh, she needs my help, and she's turning to me for help, and that's nice, And I'm gonna go get her mom, and then I'll be back, And I said, "Well, why aren't her parents picking her up?" And he goes, "I don't know. Maybe she just doesn't want to talk to them, or something." And I said, "Well, okay, And I asked him where it was, and he told me. And I said, "Okay, well, just go there and come right back." It just seems like a weird situation, a weird phone call right from the start.
Okay.
Well, so what she did was she took video of him, and she kept in the vehicle and kept grabbing his hand, and he was looking over. Like, I think later, this video got taken down, by the way, and there were people at the end who were saying, like, he looked confused. He didn't look like he felt comfortable with her, She was trying to grab his hand, and it said something, she was posting out there that, like, she found out her boyfriend has a girlfriend or something like that, which is not the case. I mean, it was just this made up, I don't know why she did it. I have no clue why someone would do something like that, other than there's some kind of sour feelings there.
Yeah.
There was some kind of sourness on her part, but what happened is that it ended up going viral, and I really wish that young people would know, it's a joke to you. You think you're going to pull a prank on somebody, you think you're going to cause some little rift or something like that, and what you end up doing is utterly really hurting someone.
Yeah.
And so this video, it went viral. You can really hurt someone that way, and don't do it. Don't actively go out and try to hurt people, because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And so Aiden, I guess it was like a week or so later, Aiden was, I came home from work, and I looked down, there was a paper bag by the front door, in the entryway hallway, and there was hair sticking out of it. And I looked in the bag, and there was a lot of hair sticking out of it, all of Aiden's hair. I immediately called him. I said, what is going on? And he was like, "Nothing, Mom." He was in a state of mania. Uh-huh. He was mad. And he was like, "Nothing, I feel great." And then I said, "Aiden, what is going on?" I was very worried about him. And he's like, no, I'm fine. He was in a state of he was in a manic state. And finally, he came home, and I sat with him and tried to get him to tell me, and he said he wouldn't tell me. But that video she uploaded went viral with over like 1 million views. And this girlfriend that he loved so much, of course, it did cause a problem. But I think she was able to see through it. People started to see through it, you know. I don't know what this girl's reputation is, but people started to see through it. And but you know, so this was the first time I'd like seen him in a state of mania, and it took a while for him to calm down. And so he was in therapy more than a few times. You know, there's also the thing with his dad, which was an ongoing. You know, he just had so much that he was dealing with. And that's the thing that I'd like to say is, you don't know what people are dealing with. Please do not add to their problems. There's no reason for anybody to go out and actively hurt people. Yeah, you don't know what's going to happen.
When did this happen? You know, of course, he went missing in 2022. When did this happen with this girl that went viral? When was it?
3 years. It was 3 years prior, before the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah, and so he did see a therapist for a while before that too, and then I think I tried to get him to see a therapist after that, and you know, we were trying to get him to get therapy in Kaiser, and they were telling us, well, you make this appointment, and then it'll be 6 to 8 weeks before the next appointment. We're like, what?
Yeah.
And they said, well, he can join our team group. And Aiden was like, no, I don't want a group therapy. He wanted one-on-one. He had serious stuff to talk about, and issues with his father, you know, his own personal issues with his father, and just, you know, just some other things. It's hard for kids, you know, and
yeah.
Anyway, so
you said that he also had a problem with once COVID started, of course, in 2020, that he did not handle that very well.
Well, of course not, because he was already having issues, and he was prescribed, like after this event, it was like, what do you call it? You call it off-brand. It's for breakthrough anxiety.
Okay.
Which he took for a while, but he didn't like taking medicine, stuff like that.
Okay.
And so he stopped taking it, and he wouldn't take it. And so we tried to get him for weekly therapy, but he said, Mom, I'm not going to go every 6 to 8 weeks. It's no help. So he didn't do that. And then when the pandemic hit, he was working at a grocery store, a local grocery store, and he started working as soon as he could. So he literally was working like on his 16th birthday. You know, he trained already when he was 15. He was ready to go at 16. He wanted his own money. He wanted to buy stuff, and so he was working at this grocery store. And I think it was a year. Then the pandemic hit, and all of the older workers left. They were like out of there. And so, in a lot of places, there were a lot of young people running our restaurants, running, you know, working all the jobs, working full time. And there was this one man, it was after the pandemic, I was in the grocery store, in that same grocery store with my son. We were in the checkout lane. We were customers. And this man behind us, an older gentleman, says, is this your son? And I said, yes, it's my son. He is such a nice young man.
Huh.
He's so polite, so helpful. Just, you should be proud. I said, I am. He's a delightful person. And I was like, thanks.
Wow.
But, you know, really, yeah. So he was always very kind and nice to people. And this was during the pandemic, it was kind of crazy. I mean, there were people screaming and yelling, and had signs on their back that "Stay away."
I know.
And so there were a lot of. This is what our young people were dealing with people having meltdowns. It was a very difficult time for businesses, but also the young people working these businesses. I remember going into a restaurant one time, and there was a teenager running all of the tables and the takeout, just one kid. I
know.
It was so hard on the young people. And Aiden, the first week there, and so right before, there was spring break, right before the pandemic hit, and him and his girlfriend that he loved so much, she was an amazing young lady, just an amazing young lady, and she was very driven academically, and when Aiden was in a relationship with her, he got straight A's. So I knew he could get straight A's, but he wasn't quite as motivated as her. He would be happy with a little slightly less than an A sometimes, But she motivated him. He had straight A's. She was so amazing, but they broke up right before the pandemic. So this really floored him. This really floored him. He was inconsolable. I didn't know what to do. So this is where I get on to Kaiser, and I'm literally crying, screaming at these people. I was crying. I was sobbing. I was like, please get him some care. But everybody needed care, right? And I told them how worried I was about him, and I was having a breakdown on the phone with these people over getting him some mental health care. And so they contracted it out through a service. They had a couple of companies that did that. And so finally I was able to get him somebody, and Aiden, everything was through Zoom or telephones during that time. And I think the second time that he had an appointment, and I would always say, how did it go, And he said, that guy fired me. I said, what? He goes, yeah, he said, I didn't sound like, he told me that I didn't sound like I had any real issues, and I was going to be okay. And I said, but that's not okay, Aiden. I want to talk to that man. And he said, no. And no, Mom, no, never mind. And, at this point, I don't know if that was true. I don't know. Aiden was really private about things, and like I said, he wouldn't lie to me. I could always tell when he was lying, but he would just say, I'm not going to talk to you about it. So, so then school was being done, and he was not doing well. It was everything in my power I could do every morning to wake him up. Now, he was an essential worker. I was an essential worker. I wasn't one of these people staying home and being able to, hold up with their kids, which I know some people probably think that was a good deal, but it wasn't. And so I had to go to work every day, and I was trying to wake him up every day, and I was coming home. Sometimes I would just have to go home. Because I would call him, I couldn't reach him. He was sleeping. He was not going to his classes. I was really worried about him, so I would go home and check on him. And then sometimes he was working. Like I said, he was working a lot too. So like as soon as class was out on Zoom, he would be at work.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a really difficult time. We fell into this really deep kind of depression, and sleeping a lot. Like I know teenagers sleep a lot, but that's not what this was.
Okay.
Did you ever get officially diagnosed with anything? I mean, of course he's seeing a therapist. Did he officially get any, determination on this?
When he was, of course, because we went to see a psychiatrist to get him on that off-brand medication with anxiety, and that was before. But at this time, and he wasn't he wasn't cooperating with me on that, like helping him get help. And I actually called, one time I called this Sonoma County like mental health crisis line, and I was talking to her saying, I need you to talk to my son. And so I'm handing, and she says, well, he's going to have to, if he wouldn't call. And I said, please talk to them, people, please talk. And so we talked to this woman for a few minutes, and then he just handed the phone back. And, that like patching stuff up in the pandemic, it was really difficult. And so then, we didn't even know if he was going to be able to have graduation, and they ended up, he was able to have graduation, and we had to have some special stuff. Some of the classes he needed makeup work for, and he seemed a little bit better, but he got a new job and at a barista, like a coffee barista place, and he was meeting a little different crowd and doing stuff with them, and met a new girlfriend, and you know how it is with young people. You meet a new girl, a new boy, things are looking up,
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and happier stuff. And so that went on for a while. Things were fine, but after about a year that he was with this new girlfriend, he started getting I noticed he was very distrustful of people. He said that he didn't like what was going on in this one group of friends, and I said, well, trust your gut. And then him and this girlfriend, she was kind of like, he was introducing her to these people, and he didn't want her around them. He was starting to become very distrustful of them, and he had some issues there, and so they broke up, and it was right around this time that he was like, I'm going to, he graduated, and he was super happy about that. And I know people have seen that photo of Aiden, who looks so happy, and he wanted to move up to Washington with a family member, and he had been up there before, visited with them, and liked it up there, and it was a different kind of people. There was like a lot of working class people, which, is not, Sonoma has a lot of affluent people.
It does.
And
yeah.
And I think Aiden felt more comfortable around, people that I think, matched how he felt inside. Like, I'm not an affluent person who lives in a big house and all this, and he was like, here's people like me, working and, getting by and stuff like that. So, and there was also a music scene up there, and was introduced to some friends of his family member who were into music, kind of like he was, doing it through music programs and stuff. And so he wanted to move up there. So it was a huge thing, I ran around and I was buying him everything. I remember when I moved out, I had zero. I don't even think I had a frying pan, okay? So I'm trying to set him up. I'm getting him some kitchen stuff. I'm getting him side tables, lamps that he might need, bathroom stuff he might need. I was kind of trying to
and
set him up.
Just to make sure we understand this, when was this?
This was in February of 22.
All right, so just a few months before he went missing. So February 22, you think he's moving to the state of Washington?
Yes.
Okay.
In the Vancouver area.
Okay.
And so he got there, and not even a week went by, and he called me. I got a message one morning, and it was him sounding upset. And he had left it like at midnight, so I tried to call him back, and I didn't hear back from him. And he said, "Oh, it's okay. I think my leg was shaking, and it was weird. I felt weird." And I said, "Oh, okay. Is everything okay?" And he said, yeah, we're just moving. So, like, when he first went up there, he was at the old apartment. They were moving into a new apartment, so they were busy moving everything over to this new apartment. And then a few more days go by, and he calls me and he says, he says, I think I'm having a panic attack.
Wow.
My leg is shaking, and he could hardly breathe. Now, he did start another relationship before he left for Washington. And I think it got more serious than he intended it to be, and they were having this long distance thing. And so he said, he said, it happens when I'm talking to her. And I said, well, then please stop talking to her. I said, I think this is getting too intense for you. Yeah. Please don't. Just stop. Just take a break, please. And so it was just a few days, maybe 5 days after that, I get a call from him, and he is in a panic. And he says he's having a panic attack again. And he says he feels weird, and that he is worried about people in the house. And I said, then leave. Okay, I said, quietly get your stuff, and I'm on the phone with him. And so he did, and then he quietly left the house. And so then he was in his vehicle, and we were talking, and I said, you should, we have a couple of family members up there. I said, why don't you wait till a decent hour, and then we'll call them and go over there. And so we were just on the phone that whole night, and I had him on 360, and so I could see where he was. I told him, please turn on 360. I need to make sure you're okay. And he was in a very, he was having some kind of panic attack. He could barely breathe. He was like hyperventilating. And this is when I said, well, I said, you should come home. And he's like, I don't want to go home. I'll go live with this other family member. And so he was there for 3 days at this family member's house, and they went and got some of his stuff. And then after a few days there, he started telling me he doesn't want to stay there. He doesn't feel safe. Okay. He's just, now I'm starting to see this, like there's a pattern, something, and I'm telling him, please come home. And he's like, well, I can't right now. I've got to get my stuff. And I said, well, he goes, I'm going to try and stay with one of these music people that he has met. And I said, oh, God, do you even know them, Aiden? And he said, no. So he says, well, I kind of know him. I think he'll let me stay. And so he contacted him. So there's just a lot of phone calls back and forth, and I'm very worried about him. He gets to this young man's place, and the young man says, well, I want to talk to your mom because I want to know what kind of person you are, because I barely know you. Yeah. And so I got on the phone with him, and he said, yeah, so, I said, well, he's asking me questions about Aiden. He says, can I trust him? I said, oh, yeah. Aiden is very cash register honest. He goes, what is that? And I said, yeah, I said, he doesn't take things. He's not going to take it. And he goes, okay. And then he said something to Aiden, and he must have walked away from Aiden, and he said, does your son have mental issues? Huh. And I said, well, what? I said, well, he's had a lot of depression, and that's why, I think he's trying to get away from some of his problems and move up there. But that is not like that's not like what he was asking me, is your son like, having a mental, like, is he on medication, he diagnosed with something? And so right then I was very, oh my gosh. I said, okay, so just let him stay there tonight. And he agreed. And the next morning, Aiden got up and I talked to him on the phone and convinced him to come back. Come home.
Let me jump in here. Let me ask you some questions. So he stayed with a few family members during this time. At the time, not only were you talking to them, but were you talking to them? Were they like giving you like another story as to what was going on? He said he didn't feel comfortable there. Were they saying the same thing or what?
Well, some of the people I couldn't get a hold of right away because they were working at a job where you can't contact them and stuff, but later they said he was acting strange.
Mm-hmm.
For this one night, they said Aiden did something that seemed strange, and then he just got up and walked into his room. I didn't really get that from the second family member.
Okay.
They asked, "Is everything okay? Why is he staying at his friends?" And there was a lot of talk, and coordinating. Like, I don't think this is going to work out with this one family member. So, can you help him get his stuff? Yes, we can do that. He's welcome to stay here as long as he wants. And then 3 days later, when he wanted to leave, they're like, "Is everything okay?" And I just told him he just wants to stay over with a friend. I didn't know what was going on. I just wanted. I thought it was a good idea for him to come back. So, So at a certain point, Aiden just grabbed some stuff, and he didn't even have all of his stuff. We had to go back up later and get the rest of his stuff. But grabbed some of his stuff, and he drove back down, and I could tell he just really needed to decompress. And I said, Aiden, why don't you just relax, go skateboard, play guitar, decompress for a while, and I want you to see a therapist. And he didn't say anything to me about that, and I thought that was a good sign. I wasn't gonna argue with him, seeing that he was in a state of mind. I didn't want to upset him, so I wanted him to just relax and sleep. I don't think he had been sleeping. So I said, you can go to the park. He used to go to the square and busk, just for fun. And I said, go see your friends. Go, just chill out. Just chill out. Go with your friends to the ocean, to Bodega Bay. I know he loved that a lot. And it was kind of a calming, like I said before, it was his soul place to go. He really was calmed and liked going out there. And
so when did he start talking about going on a trip?
When did he start talking about the trip?
Yeah.
Well, first he was home for a while, and then he was bored. I guess he was bored, and he started looking for a job again, and so he started looking for a job, and he found one that was going to be in Sonoma, but he had to train in another town, and so he spent, I don't know if it was a week or so doing that, and then he came back up, and he did a few days training there, and then he had one official work day, and I know I've talked about this before, but there was something that happened there, and where this person, that had a connection to some of the people at the coffee place. This person embarrassed him in front of customers, kind of like in a very, I would say, inappropriate way. And he came. So I came home, and that day, his door was shut, and so I knocked on it, and I didn't hear anything, and so I waited a few minutes, and I went back and I knocked on the door, and he said, yeah, and I went in, and it's all dark, like he had blackout curtains, it was dark, and I said, hey, how'd it go today? And he was in bed, and he goes, okay. I said, yeah, and then he just burst into tears, and he told me about what happened, and so I have a little notebook that I keep with me, and I said, well, we're going to document this. That, you know, you need to take this to HR, and let's document it. So I started writing it out, and he was like, no, just let me write it out. And so he wrote it out next to my page, and then he wrote a letter of resignation, and he said, should I quit? And I said, yeah, you don't need to, no, you quit. Go ahead and quit. You don't feel comfortable there, quit. And so he wrote up a resignation letter and took it in, I think, on the Sunday. And I'm not sure if that was the Saturday or the Sunday, but he gave it to the assistant manager who was, I guess the manager was getting married that weekend. And they said, you know, don't worry about it, stay here, she's leaving anyway. And he said, no, I'm quitting. And so he was, you know, home that Sunday, and that's when I was working 2 jobs at this time. And while I was at these jobs, I was looking for a therapist for him, and I found one. And so Monday, I believe it was Monday. No, this was a Sunday. Hang on, let me see. This was a Sunday. I said, hey, I came home from work, and I said, hey, I found this guy. Do you wanna go to therapy, please? And he said, okay, Mom, sure. And so I said, well, here he is, and you know, this is blah blah blah. And he goes, okay, Mom. And then he was looking at his phone. We were sitting in the living room, and he got like a disturbed look on his face. And I said, what's wrong? And he goes, nothing's wrong. And he jumps up in his room, and he's making some noise in it. I said, is everything okay? You know, Mom says, is everything okay? And I was worried. And he said, no, it's okay. Everything's fine. Everything's good. And he came out a little while later, and he said, you know, I think I just need to get out of town for a few days.
Huh.
And yeah. And I said, well, what do you mean? Where are you going to go? And he says, well, I'm just going to go stay with a friend or my dad. And I was surprised to hear him say that, because him and his dad had a relationship, and I think since sophomore year, really. And I mean, that's when they weren't talking anymore.
Okay.
And yeah, they had gotten, he didn't really know his dad until the end of 5th grade, and then they had a relationship for a while, but it didn't go well. And you know, I wanted things to work out, but that's not what happened. So
where does Dad live?
Aiden. He lives in Northern California.
Okay.
And but you know, I had to respect Aiden's. You know, I'm not gonna, what Aiden wanted and how he felt about it. I feel like he had every right to feel whatever he felt about it, and what he wanted to do with that relationship was up to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was kind of the end of that. So of course I was surprised to hear that he wanted to go stay with his dad. And I said, well, you know, I thought, well, wow, he really wants to get out of town. And I said, okay, well, can you give your dad a heads up, because he's probably not going to be expecting you. And he says, yeah, okay. So I mean, I was worried, but I just wanted him to calm down. I was hoping he was going to go stay with this one friend who lives nearby that he visited sometimes, and just a friend, you know. And I said, can you please call me wherever you go, you know, please give me a call. But he didn't. So I was trying to text him, and I was getting no reply. So I called his father, and I told him he might be coming your way. You know, just to give you a heads up, you know, let me know. I told him to call me. And so I just had this bad feeling, you know, when Aiden was going out the door, and this is not something my son has ever done before, but I said, Aiden, don't sleep in your car. Don't sleep in your truck.
Okay.
And I don't know what, I just had this feeling. I said, don't do that, please. Yeah. I said, please come home or go to your friends or your dad's and call me. Please, I just need to know that you're okay. Okay, Mom, yeah. So he grabs like some stuff, throws it in his car, and I said, I love you, and then when I tried to call him later, he wasn't, and text him, he wasn't replying.
Okay.
So the next morning, I'm texting and calling, and finally he answers, and he's like, what? Really nonchalant. And I'm like, where have you been? And he said, Mom, I slept in my truck. I said, oh my God, why did you do that? And he told me he was at this one park that him and his dad used to play ball at. And I said, can you please come home? And he told me, no, I'm not coming home. And I heard him driving. And I said, where are you? And he says, I'm not going to tell you. Don't worry about it. I said, Aiden, where are you? And he says, Mom, I got to go now. So I started, and he hangs up. And, this was kind of a cyclical thing that he did for the next couple of days.
Okay.
And so at this point, I called his dad. I said, and he's like, yeah, he never showed up. And I was like, yeah, I guess not. And I was saying, I'm gonna report him missing. So this was on the 25th. I was saying, like, if he doesn't come home, I'm gonna report him missing.
Just to be clear, April 25th of 2022. Just to make sure, April 25th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So later that night, it was 8-something, I called his father back and I said, okay, I reported him missing. And so in hindsight, what happened was, and I did have another conversation with him where I, like I said, he wouldn't lie to me, or he would, I'm sure he has lied to me, but like most of the time, I can tell. But he wouldn't resort to lying. He would just say, I'm not going to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
And so I could hear him driving, and I said, where are you? I said, are you north of the Golden Gate or south? And he said, I'm south. And I said, no, you're not. I could tell. He was lying. He was lying to me. And he said nothing.
Why did you bring up the Golden? I have to ask. Why did you bring up the Golden Gate Bridge?
Because it would have given me some kind of idea, like it would have given me an idea of direction. I know we've been to Santa Cruz before, and there's a lot of young people there, and it would have given me an idea if he was headed back up north, I thought, or if he was headed someplace like Santa Cruz, or I was just trying to get some kind of bead on him,
Okay.
And that is a giant, landmark. And
I guess the reason I have to ask is because when we mention San Francisco bridges and disappearances, we automatically know that is the most common place for suicides in the United States. Yeah. I just needed to clear that up. Was that in your mind? I just wanted to make sure. Was that on your mind? Was it not on your mind?
It was not on my mind.
Okay, very good.
That was not on my mind.
Okay.
He used to go into San Francisco too. So
Okay.
he used to go into San Francisco, and so and that actually was not on my mind at this point. I thought he might be in San Francisco or Santa Cruz or someplace. He likes beach communities.
Okay.
So I know he moved to Golden Gate Park. He used to just hang out there, go to the city sometimes. That's where he got his tattoos. So I knew he wasn't telling me the truth. So he talked to me later that night, and he said he was in a hotel and he was safe, and he still wouldn't tell me where he was. And but I made him promise to call me the next morning, and he did. But like he would, if I started asking him too many questions, he would, and putting pressure on him to come home or stop this, and he would just hang up on me and block me. And so he he called me the next morning. I tried to reach him, and then he checked in and he says, guess what? So this was on the 26th. So he spent the night on the 24th in his vehicle, and then he drove all day on the 24th is when he left, and he spent the night in his vehicle, and then on the 25th is when he was driving, and I didn't know where. And apparently he stayed at a Motel 6 in Reno. In hindsight, we found that out later.
Okay.
And I found that out through a banking.
Okay,
We had our account.
we'll get to that. But didn't he end up headed toward the grandparents, his father's parents?
Yes. So then he said, I'm going to go to Grandpa and Grandma's up in Utah, and I'm going to stay with them for the summer. And he sounded really happy. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, okay, this is great. And so then there was all these phone calls, I called the grandparents, and I called Aiden, and we're talking about it, and his situation, like where he's going to stay. They had just bought a brand new fifth wheel, and they were going to, they had it all hooked up, and it was going to be his own place. It was in their backyard, in a secure fence.
Yeah.
And it was going to be like his own setup, what he wanted, to be alone, and to have his own space. And I said, you can just get any kind of barista job there. You'll be great, because he had a lot of experience being a barista. So I said that'll be amazing. And so I'm excited. I just want him to land, and my brain is already going. I'm going to get out of here. I got to go see him, And we talked about therapy too. I said, when you get there, I'm going to set you up with you can do this out-of-state thing with your Kaiser. And he said yes. He agreed. Not really enthusiastically, but said, yes, okay, Mom, like that. And so that was great until about 5 o'clock, because he was getting near. So now I know he's on 80. Now I know where he is, right? And I asked him, send me a picture of the salt flats. And he said, no, I can't do that. And then as it got close to 5, he calls me at work, and I go outside, and he goes, Mom, what kind of security is that? I mean, where can anybody get into that truck? So once again, he's starting, he hasn't even gotten there yet, and he's starting to get paranoid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, please don't do this, Aiden. Please, there's a lock, just like the front door of our house. You have the key. You can lock it, and nobody can get in. And he was like, I don't know, Mom, I don't know. I said, look, they have it there's a security fence too. Like, you're safe. They're not going to be able to get in. I said, please don't do this, Aiden. Please just, and he says, Mom, okay. And he hangs up. And I'm like, please just drive there, and please just go. Don't do this. Please stop seeing everything very darkly, Aiden, please. And then he hung up, and about, I don't know how, it was like an hour and a half later, I guess.
Okay.
And I had been texting, how's it going? And I get a call from the grandmother, and she's absolutely frantic, and she's saying that Aiden tried to take his grandfather she said he tried to kidnap him. And I said, what? And
wow.
He didn't really know much about what was going on, because what happened is that his grandfather's phone was running out of battery. It had very low, percentage. And when he said that later when I talked to him later that night, he said that Aiden seemed fine. They were talking, and then he says, yeah, we were talking about joining the military, and Aiden said he wanted to be in the military. And I said, what? No.
Yeah.
Aiden would never say. He goes, well, he seemed fine. And I knew immediately that Aiden was putting on a show, because he would never say that. He's not a military guy, has zero interest in going in the military. And that's just not him. That's just not him. And so he said, he said when he got in the car, now this was hours later, because what happened was that he dropped his grandfather. They got in an argument. He dropped him off the side of the highway with no bars and no anything, and he couldn't reach his wife to tell him what happened. They did have a friend. He was able to reach his friend for a few seconds and just get out where he barely was. And I guess this guy was driving around the highways looking for him, and finally found him and brought him back home. And so Debbie didn't really know what was going on because the phone cut out, and it was just a mess.
All right, let me just summarize this for everybody. So he's makes this trip the whole way across the state of Nevada to Utah. Where is this in Utah? What city?
Well, they were going to meet because of I guess they live north of Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And so they decided to meet in Salt Lake City, and they just met at some random gas station. I guess it's called the Sugar House area, and I don't know why they chose that place. Maybe Mike knew that it was easy to get to, and go off this ramp and go there. Like it's right there. So I think it was just pure convenience, and it was in the Sugar House area. It was a speedway. I remember that. And so when he got in the car, so what happened was that his friend drove his grandfather down.
Okay.
His grandfather and his grandfather's friend drove down to meet him at the gas station.
Okay.
And Aiden said, and Aiden was going to follow them back, and he said, because it's a busy highway, it's, all the highways there, it's crazy. I've been on them. And so he said, I'll follow you back, and he said he wanted his grandfather to ride in the car with him, and his friend said, okay, I'll drive this car back, and let's ride together. And when he said when they got in the truck, his face completely changed, like just was not being not smiling, happy. He just sat there staring at the steering wheel. And his grandfather said, "Hey, come on, what are you doing? We gotta go." And he still just sat there. And then all of a sudden he started the car and just hit the gas and just took off in some random wherever. He said he was going 60 in a 25 mile an hour zone. And he said, "Hey, do you want to go?" He started a conversation saying, "Hey, do you want to go to Washington?" To his grandfather, and his grandfather said, "Aiden, I can't do." He meant right then. He goes, let's go right now. Let's go to Washington right now." And his grandfather said, I can't go right now. I mean, that sounds like a fun trip. It's something we can plan out, but I can't go now." And then he said that Aiden was looking at his phone and looking at his window, like looking back and forth between his driver's side window and his phone. And Mike got not a good feeling about that and pulled his phone closer. He felt like he was going to grab it or something.
Right.
And so then Aiden just he just wheeled off on the side of the highway and said, "Get out."
Wow.
And then just took off. So when his grandmother called me in hysterics, I said, "Call the police." Oh my God. And where did they meet? And she didn't know. She just knew that they had a meeting place. Mm-hmm. And so I had to wait until Mike actually finally got back to the house, and to find out where it was. But in the meantime, I called the Utah Highway Patrol, and I reported like a 5150. They call it something else.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. Let me jump in here, please. When Aiden kicked his grandfather, once again, to be clear, this is his father's parents, not your parents, are correct?
Right.
Okay. So when he kicked his grandfather out of the car, did Aiden say where he was going?
No.
Okay.
He just took off.
Okay. Very good. So he kicks off, he just takes off, then you find out about this, you call Utah Highway Patrol, and they're looking for him.
And I said he's having a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea where he was headed at this point. I was awake all night.
I bet.
I was on Google Earth and looking for where he might, we had family in Michigan, not very much, but we had family in Florida, and I thought, my God, if he be going to Florida, I have no idea. And I was like just in the living room with the phone on my chest, all the time, checking it for anything, trying to call him. He wasn't answering me. And then the next morning I saw, I did see this thing. It didn't the banks are funny, like how some things will come in before they come in not in chronological order.
No, they don't.
Yeah, and so the next morning I saw that there was a. So this was the 26th. This was the 26th that he was taking off. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So I did contact him again, and I was able to talk to him that day. And I said, and he picked up the phone surprisingly after a while. And I said, Aiden, what happened?
Yeah.
Nothing happened. I said, Aiden, what happened? Why did you leave him out there? He didn't want to. I don't know, Mom. What did he say? I just and he wasn't giving me a straight answer. And so when I started asking him, trying to say, Aiden, what is going on? Please stop. Please pull over, please. And then he hung up on me. And so I keep trying to contact him. Then he picked up the phone again, and I could hear he's talking to me, and I said, "Are you okay?" And I'm just, trying to get him to same stuff that I've been asking him the whole time: stop, come home. He said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And I heard a semi in the background. I said, "What was that?" And he goes, "What? Nothing." I said, "That was a semi. You're at a truck stop," and he didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. And then. So then I said, well, get to a hotel, my God, get somewhere safe. And he says, I will, Mom. And he was so tired. I could hear in his voice, like, this exhaustion. Okay, Mom, I'll do that. I'm so tired, and he was exhausted. I could just hear it in his voice, like everything in his body exhausted. So a little while later, he called me. He says, I'm in a hotel room. And so I said, can you please try to sleep? Please try to sleep. You need some rest. And he asked me, he asked me to read to him.
Wow.
And so, he said, I just want to hear your voice. This wasn't in the same conversation. He tried to sleep, he said. And so he texted me back. And as soon as he texted me back, I knew he was awake. And I called him and he said, would you read to me? I just want to hear your voice, Mom. And maybe that'll help me go to sleep. And I said, okay. So I was reading to him and he said, okay. And I'm like, please call me first thing in the morning. Aiden, please call me the first thing. And so I'm up all night again. Phone is on my chest. I'm looking between. I'm at the computer. I'm at the computer. Oh, and I also called between this. I called Sonoma County back, and I said, I need you to. He's endangered. And this guy, I got in a screaming argument with this guy. In the Sonoma County Sheriff's, and he said he does not meet the criteria because Aiden was over 18, and that made everything really difficult.
Yep.
At one point, I called the hospital. This was before he left. I called the hospital, and I asked them to please get a message to the doctor that something was wrong with Aiden, and if I didn't know if he was on medication. He went to the doctors that week before he left. And I asked him, is everything okay, and what did he get? And so I said, I wasn't sure if he had been given medication or what, and so I was telling them, please, there's something wrong. And they said, if he needs help, he'll call us. And then she literally hung up on me. Mm-hmm. And I called Sonoma County again and asked them for help. And they said, he needs to call in. And, I told Aiden, I'm really worried about you, Aiden. And that's when he decided he said, okay, I'll go into counseling, so that night that he left, he said, I'll go into counseling. So at this point,
so going from the April 26th into April 27th, he wanted you to read to him, and he was tired.
Yeah. And I could hear how exhausted he was, and I still didn't know where he was. So on So we had a couple more texts, and I think one more, it was like right around, it was after midnight, it was near 1, and he said he wanted me, he goes, Mom, I want you to download Telegram. And he sent me a link, and I said, what is this? And he says, oh, it's just this thing just downloaded. I said, Aiden, it says it's for Apple. How do I get that downloaded? Because he had a brand new Apple phone. And he goes, never mind, Mom, it doesn't matter. It's okay. And I said, okay, call me first thing in the morning. So right around 5 in the morning, I had this, I wanted to call him.
Yeah.
And I knew he didn't have enough sleep. But I had this urge to call him at about 5:30 in the morning. And I thought he's going to be really upset with me if I wake him up. So I waited till about 7 or maybe 7:30, and I just sent him a text saying, please, don't forget, call me when you wake up. And there was no reply. Now, in between that, I don't know if I think I'd already been on the computer by that time, and I saw something come up in the bank account that he had gotten gas at a Chevron in Wendover. So I look up Wendover. So now this is the morning of the 27th, and immediately I call. I see that Wendover and West Wendover, they're on the state line.
Yeah,
so
between Utah and Nevada. Yeah, most people don't going to know where that is. Wendover is on the border of Utah and Nevada on Route 80.
Yeah, it's on 80, and it's Wendover on the Utah side and West Wendover on the Nevada side. Yeah. Yes. There's this arch that you drive through between two casinos, and you go from one state to the other. And so I called Thule County, and so I'm on the computer like, what county is this, and there's no 911 when somebody is that far away from you, and you're looking at the numbers. And so I called the Wendover police. I told them the situation. I mean, this is all, I'm in a panic, and I called West Wendover police. I called Thule on the Utah, I call it Thule County. On the Utah side, I call Elko County. This is the morning of the 27th. And they go all over there. I called all of those guys, and they go all over. So now I know he's headed west on 80. And so, they look all over the place, and they're all over the hotels there. They're looking for his truck everywhere. And at this point, there is a flurry of activity. I have phone calls coming in from, restricted phone lines, which are the law enforcement. And I'm getting calls from restricted numbers while I'm on the line with other law enforcement. It was so hard. I mean, this was a traumatic experience. I couldn't do anything fast enough. Can't do it fast enough, and things are not happening fast enough. And so I got this weird call from some unrestricted phone number, and at this point I didn't know where he was now because I couldn't reach him. I didn't know that he had stayed at the Motel 6 at this point. The Elko County found that out later because he paid cash. And so now I don't know if he's even in Elko County. He could have gone south on 93, and I saw that Las Vegas was down there. So I call around 11:15. I call the NHP, a dispatch, and I start telling them, please look for this vehicle. Yeah, and she tells me, well, who did you make the report with? And I said, Sonoma County, and I also made a report with Elko County. Well, I had been in contact with Elko County, but I think at this point I had already tried to make a report with them, and because it was believed he was traveling. Obviously, he was getting gas, right? He's going through. He's going through Nevada. And she said, well, just go back to them and talk to them. And I said, no. I'm talking to you. I said, he's having, I told every single jurisdiction that my son was having a mental breakdown. He was having some kind of psychosis or something.
Okay.
And I told every single law enforcement jurisdiction that I called, I told him that. And I told her that, and I gave her the description of the vehicle, and this was at 11:15 on the 27th.
A.M. in the morning.
In the morning.
Okay.
And they had already stopped by Aidan's car at 8:50 in the morning.
They already said, by the time you called it at 11:50, just so we're clear on this, by the time you called it 11:15, this would be Pacific time, they had already seen his truck on the side of the road in Nevada.
Yes.
Okay.
And it also, when we got body and dash cam footage, it was clear as a bell. You could hear it. He told dispatch the plate numbers, and they said he's missing in 21. He's missing in 21 and under.
Okay.
And that is Suzanne's law, which is when you report someone 21 and under, between the ages of 18 and 21, they have to be uploaded to the NCIC within 2 hours. I don't think that happened in Sonoma County. I think it took 5 hours to show up on the NCIC. Mm-hmm. And we're supposed to search immediately, and that was one of the fights that I had with Sonoma County when I was telling them he was endangered, and and they said, what do you want us to do? He's not here, and I got the screaming match with this guy. And so this officer, this patrol guy, he said he was coming up to do a motor assist, and we could see, now this was months and months and months later.
All right, hold on. Let me jump in here, Amy. So you call at 11:15, and is it at 11:15 on April 27th when they tell you that the truck has already been located?
No.
No. When do you find that out?
On the morning of the 28th.
Okay, so
you don't. Approximately the same time, almost 9 a.m., 24 hours later.
Okay.
So this guy on the 27th sees his car. He passed him, and he obviously had turned around because he was coming. He was going north on 93, and he's already talking and saying, "I see it. There's you can't even see Aidan's truck yet." So he obviously passed him and said he was turning around to do a motor assist.
Okay.
And he's driving north towards him. Aidan was headed south, and so then there's this meteorological weather station on the east side of 93, and across from there is where Aidan's truck was. And so this guy pulls in like a U-turn. There's a horseshoe place at this weather station, and so the officer pulls into the U, goes through it, and then crosses the highway and pulls in behind Aidan's truck. And he runs the plates, and dispatch comes back and says, Aidan Clune, age 19, 21 and under, and he's missing and 21 and under. And this guy, he looks around. He was there for less than 5 minutes. He kind of leans to the left, leans to the right, walks around the truck door. Passenger door is open, and there are items strewn all over the side.
Okay.
Passenger door is wide open. His backpack is in there. His wallet is in there. His backpack and a duffel bag. There's stuff strewn out on the ground.
Wow.
And so he says, well, looks like there's nobody here. He shuts the door, and he doesn't even have another call, and drives away. Now, Suzanne's law says that if there's a report of somebody missing 21 and under, that you have to start a search immediately, and that, if you have another call that is life-threatening, then you can go to that. But if you don't, even if it's just like property damage or something, somebody argument, at a house, you have to look for the missing person. He had 0 calls. He had no call waiting for him. He says, well, there's nobody here. Shuts the door, shuts Aiden's door, marks it, and drives away.
When did you finally get to see this?
It was the summer. Was it the summer of 22? It was like, I believe, August of 22.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so why?
yeah,
How did?
later than,
I need to ask you. How did you get to see that? I mean, you should know. You know, families don't even usually get to see missing persons reports. You got to see a badge cam. How did that happen?
well, it's public record. Okay, so what I did was I went back in like June, or it was June, I believe. This was the one time I was in Nevada by myself, and my family was very nervous about that. And I went to the NHP office, and I went in and I went up to the little kiosk there, and she comes up and I said, I would like to see the dispatch notes. I'm Amy Clune, and I'm here. I want the dispatch notes from the 27th. Mm-hmm. And she goes, just a minute, and she goes into this office, and this office door is open, and she walks across the office, and she goes into this open door that's like it's a part of a hallway with a lot of office doors, and she's in there. So she's in there, and she's in there. Then another person, I see another person go in there. And then somebody else is walking by, and they go in there. Then a female officer comes out of another office, and she goes in there. Now there's like, how many people is that? Well, there's obviously one person in there already. Now there's 5 people in there.
Okay.
And I can tell you how long. And so I had a little notebook, and I'm really livid, you know, but I kept myself calm, and I made myself sit on this little chair. And finally she comes out and she goes, well, we're not going to be able to give you the dispatch. I mean, you can make a request. I said, I'd like to talk to them. So I want to talk to somebody. I want, you know, she goes, just a minute. Some people are going to come out and talk to you. So these 2 officers come out and talk to me, a female and a male officer. And I'm asking them, why didn't you call Sonoma County? What is going on here? And they're just like, you know, we can't talk about it. We don't know. We don't know anything. One of the people said they didn't know that he was missing or something like that. I have my notes. I don't have my notes with me right now, but I took all the notes about it. And I was really livid that I made sure I sat in my chair and never once stood up. And I said, I want to see I want the records. And they told me, well, you're going to have to make a formal request for the records. Right. So you can get a FOIA. There's also a thing called a GRAMA. A GRAMA. It's I don't know what that acronym's for, but a FOIA. So I said okay, and I actually went back again another time. I was just so livid. I wanted some answers, like why didn't you call Elko? Why didn't you call Elko? I had been on the phone with Elko, and they said something like, well, we're on different frequencies. We don't really talk to each other. And yet every time me and my sister go back down to Wells, we see them parked next to each other talking. You know, we see BNHP and Elko County Sheriff's, they're sitting there talking next to their park. And I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe that. There's a lot of stuff. I'll tell you, for Elko, I've tapped on tabs on the stuff going down in Elko. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, let's not get. I don't want to get off topic here. I'm asking you, how did you finally get to see the badge cam?
Well, I had to send certified letters. I had to send 3. One never, and I sent the ones that had the labels that are supposed to come back to you. Yeah. The first one was lost in the mail. So the second one I sent to Carson City, the headquarters. And I didn't get a green thing back from them either. So I sent a third one to the Elko station, and finally they said, we're going to send you they told me how to set up an account. They would give me a PIN, and then those items would be in there. The report, which was literally like so scant. I mean,
Yeah.
thing that it was one page was nothing. But there were no dispatch. I didn't see any dispatch notes, and then they had the body cam and in the dash cam because it's public record.
Okay. All right.
And so I did that with a lot of jurisdictions. I sent requests for records.
Okay. So that's how you got to see the badge cam. So you got to log in somewhere and there was a video online?
Yeah, and they had the 2 videos and the report. And so I just, downloaded them.
Okay. Let me ask you now, let's go back and take a deeper look at some of these things. So this police officer did come across it, didn't do what he was supposed to do. We have Susie's Law, that yes is named after Susie Law, which is the first disappearance that was ever featured on Unfound.
It's called Suzanne. Yeah, Suzanne's Law. Suzanne.
Right, yeah, Suzanne's Law, yeah. And so you find out about this, about his truck being there. And when was the first search done? And, the distance, and I understand there was footprints. What can you tell about the first searches that were done for that?
So the morning of the 28th, I got a call from Elko County, said that they were alerted to Aidan's car, and I was saying, by who? By who?
Mm-hmm.
And that is when I literally I got off the phone, I took a backpack and a duffel bag, I just stuffed it, I called my friend, my dear friend, she left immediately, she lives 40 minutes from me, she hightailed it out, we were on the road like so fast. We stopped and got one of her tires checked, and we were there in Elko at 5 p.m.
Okay.
That's how fast we drove up there. Yeah. And they said we found Aidan's car, truck, and they're looking now. I guess the night before when we said that he was in Wendover, they did from the Wendover thing, they did a ping on his phone, and it was, south of, I just can't wrap my head around this. It was south of Wells.
Okay.
On the 27th. So on the 27th, it was still pinging south of Wells on 93, right on 93. But where is Aiden? And there was also some local ranchers just prior to when the NHP pulled around Aiden's truck that saw him carrying stuff under the BLM land fence. Mm-hmm. And this was about 15, 20 minutes before the NHP pulled up behind him.
Okay.
And it was
all right, we're going to get to that. I'm just asking you about the searches. You went out there and the searches were done, of course, because he wasn't there with his truck. Well, what searches were done?
So they could clearly see foot tracks leaving the vehicle. The sand was it's like talc powder.
Yeah.
You can see it. Yeah, just clear as a bell. And so they started searching. They told me he went over this ridge, but when I actually saw the ridge, when I drove out there with the sheriff, I could not believe it. This is not a ridge. This is a small mountain. Mm-hmm. I said, he went over that? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And they had a 3-man team. They had search and rescue out there. They were tracking him. They tracked him up over this ridge down onto the bench, which is the flat area. That's what they call it. It's the bench between mountain ranges. And tracked him to the second ridge, which is just the northern tip of the Cherry Creek mountain range, which runs for miles. I mean, if he had stopped somewhere south of there, this would have even been just unbelievably unsurmountable search because the mountains get even bigger, and it's crazy. We were at the very north end, and so then they sent out like a 3-man team overnight. I think on the 28th or the 29th, I can't remember which day, and they were tracking him, climbing through the second mountain range. He had gone completely across the bench. He was headed in a southwest direction. He went up through the second mountain range, and then they kind of lost sight of his tracks. It's 2.5 million acres out there with So they decided to jump ahead and see if they couldn't see if he got into the middle of the range. So they went down Cottonwood Canyon, which is one of the roads in, and it takes quite a while to get back there.
Yeah, and the listeners should know we can't do these anything justice with audio. There are maps that Amy has sent me that will be posted. Of course, every place that we usually post pictures and video for all of you to peruse. So if you're a little confused, you don't know some of these locations, please just go to the maps and look at them, because there's no way to describe them through audio. But we're talking a huge distance here, like footprints for like 10 miles or something.
Yeah, so the distance as the crow flies from his truck to the side of the mountain, which was on the third range, was halfway up that mountain, and there was still snow. It was kind of a warm spring, but there was still snow at the tops, like the top third of these mountains. And he had crawled up this. They said they could tell because his toes were dug in. You can see when tracks when they're going down and going up by the way the toes go in, And this is I've been on the side of that and up and down there. It was the side of this mountain was covered in sagebrush. It was so thick. Going down, you would have broke your neck. I almost broke my neck. I had to start switchbacking back and forth just to get down. And he was towing his way up, and then he hit snow, and they lost his tracks because the snow melted.
Oh my! And how many miles? Once again, how many miles? What are you talking now at this point from his truck, approximately?
9. This is as the crow flies, 9 miles.
9 miles.
But as walking up and down all this,
yeah,
I don't know.
Lot farther.
14, 15.
Lot farther.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mile.
Did I read somewhere that his shoes were found? Like, did he take his shoes off? I mean, or what? What?
So during the tracking, they found that he was removing his shoes and crossing roads and then putting them back on. They said that he that a few times they could tell when he was running. Like the footsteps they're far apart. You can tell when they're running and walking. A few times he fell down when he was running, and so to me it sounds like he was afraid. I think he was full of fear and in a panic.
Yeah.
And they said they found like prints under trees or bushes sometimes, like where he had rested. They said that he would put his shoes back on and had one shoe on. They found a sock print one time, that he seemed to be being evasive.
There were things in his tracking that made them think that he was trying to disguise what he was doing. So if he was paranoid that people were actually chasing him, he was trying to evade them by disguising his tracks or something like that.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I believe because of the timing of when when these people saw him taking stuff under the fence, I think that Aiden saw the officer. I think Aiden was in the nearby trees. I think he saw the officer pull behind his car, and I think he heard them say missing in 21 and under, and I think it's horrible timing. And
okay.
I also, they marked his vehicle and shut the door. And just a week earlier, I had a friend who whose car got stuck on the highway, and I told him I had to go out and help them right away. And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because after 24 hours, they mark your car." I said, "Then after 24 hours, they can tow it."
Yeah.
So if he had seen them mark the car and drive away, he would have known that was just, but the reason I believe that Aiden was right there is the timing of the ranchers. They found his guitar case in those trees. And we have had, depending on what device we're looking on, we can see in this one grouping of trees a silhouette of a guitar case and like human head and shoulders. Yeah.
Can the public see that? I mean, do you have a screenshot of that, or has that never been made public, or what?
No, it hasn't. Because we've had trouble because of the way the format of these videos, that every time you open them, they get degraded. And so we're working on getting someone and having it transferred into an MP3 so that, and then get it cleaned up a little bit. And what we found was like on my old phone, you couldn't see it. It's clear. You know, it just looked like dark, blah, blah. But when you looked at somebody else's phone, like say a brand new iPhone, it was much more,
I see.
Yeah, you had to go frame by frame, and that works differently on different phones. So it never came up on the frames on my phone, you know, but it was coming up on this my family member's phone, and I was like, holy cow. And so that is what I think happened. I think Aiden was, unfortunately.
All right, so what you're talking about, going back to this badge cam, if you were to watch that frame by frame, although the police officer obviously didn't see him, what you're saying is the camera in the distance might have picked out Aiden in the distance, maybe watching what was going on.
Yes. Okay. And I'm not talking about very far either. I'm talking about 30 yards.
Okay.
Maybe 30 yards. Not even 30 yards. 20 yards.
Okay.
20, 30 yards. Yeah.
Okay.
Just on the other side of the BLM fence. This group of trees was just on the other side of the BLM fence.
Okay.
It was very close.
Okay. Let's talk about the truck. You said that the doors were open, things were strewn all over the ground. What did end up happening to the truck and all of his possessions? Where did they go? Did you get the truck back? What happened to all of that?
Yeah, so just the passenger side door was open and stuff strewn out there. There was a book. There was some kind of package that looked like it had like electrolyte stuff in it. There was some other wrappers and stuff, water bottle. And they towed it that day.
Okay.
And so even if Aiden had come back, he would have had no vehicle to come back to. I don't really know why they did that. I don't know if that's standard operating procedure or what. I wish they had left it there in case he came back and you know, yeah.
And
so
what happened
then,
what happened to it after that?
So it was impounded. They had it at Elko County's yard, and so I kept asking them, you know, could this be at this time? A lot of this stuff was found out in hindsight. I said, anybody could have driven up, and you know, he's out there in the middle of nowhere, and the door's wide open, and they said, yeah, anybody could have come up. I said, yes, exactly. This could be a criminal case. But they said there was no criminal case, no sign of that. And so they couldn't, they didn't want, so until something was revealed, they wanted to keep the truck. And I said, but his laptop was in there. And I said, well, how are you ever going to discern if this is you know, I need to find out. I wanted to know if I could get into the laptop, if there was anything in his possessions that would tell me anything. And they're just saying, it was like a catch-22. I went to meet them that one time when I went alone. That's when I picked up his truck. And so I sat there in the office with them and went round and round, and they're like, well, you know, in case it turns into a criminal case. And I said, but you're just telling me. I mean, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't get a subpoena or a warrant or anything because there was no basis for criminal. And I said, so you're telling me there's no basis for criminal, and there might be some evidence in there or something in there that would tell us something. And I said, okay, I'm picking it up. I'm getting it. So I picked it up in June and drove it back, and we cloned his hard drive of his Mac computer, and I have tried to get into that computer, and I can't. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking for a clue.
Yeah,
I'm looking for something.
Of course.
I was able to get into his iCloud and saw that he actually had a map for Love's truck stop in Twin Falls, Idaho. Strangely enough, up by a town called Jerome.
Yeah, his middle name.
And Currie, another Currie, spelled differently, which this is very strange, but the name Currie has come up several times. So up there, the map, I think it's possible Aiden went the wrong direction and realized it and stopped and realized he was exhausted and wanted to lay down or something under a tree. I play guitar. I don't know. But there's a Twin Falls, and on west of Twin Falls on the other side of the highway is Currie and Jerome. He might have the mapping thing. He did this once before where he picked the wrong street and it was taking him out of town, and so it might have picked the wrong Currie. That Currie up there is spelled, I believe, just with a Y, and the one down by where he was found is the IE.
IE.
But then, and there was another witness when I was there that said that they saw him in Currie Market in Spring Creek, Khoury or EY.
Another Currie.
And then when I had to go to a specialist last year, Dr. Currie.
Let's jump in here. Let's jump in here. Something that you wanted moved to this point. You had discovered eventually after he went missing that he had been telling different stories to different people. That, going way back to Sonoma in California before he ever took off for Utah, that he was telling, what did you mean by that? He was, people that were around you, he was telling different stories to different people. What did that mean?
Well, so when I got back the first time, so I was there for a week in Elko, and I did not want to leave, but my friend had to go back, and she was super worried about me, and she had another family member convince me to come back. And so I started going to his friends and talking to them, and he told one friend that he used to work with at his first job that they had put him on medication before he went. No, what he told her, he never told me this. He'd always argued and said he didn't want to take medication for, like I said, anxiety and stuff, like depression and that. And he told her that they changed his medication just before he went up to Washington. He said this before he left for Washington. He went to say goodbye to her, and he said that they just changed his medication, and that he was on antidepressants. And so then I found out he was telling his other friends some kind of story. I mean, I can't even remember all this stuff. He told me he was in Bodega Bay. He wasn't in Bodega Bay. He was down the road from my house with his cousin who lives in Glen Ellen with us, and her mother, and he was telling them some kind of story. And what would he tell them? But then he told, he later told somebody else that they were acting weird and that they were doing something really strange. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to protect people. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I know that Aiden was just like imagining all kinds of weird stuff. And so I don't want to say what it was, but he was saying they were.
All we're trying to establish here is that he was telling, well before he ever went missing, he was telling different stories to different people about things.
Yes.
Okay.
And so he wasn't even telling like the same story that wasn't true to different people. He was telling everybody he was coming across completely different stories. Mm-hmm. And I talked to one of his friends, and they said, they told me something he said, and I said, oh my gosh, that's completely different from the other people. So it was like everybody he came across, he had a little different story or a little different scenario that he was telling them, and I didn't know this until after I got back to Sonoma.
Okay.
Yeah, but this happened before he went missing, and I found out a couple of weeks after as I started calling his friends, and they said, oh, he told us he was doing such and such, and I'm like, oh my God, that's completely different from what he told them, from these other people, so it was like he was telling every single person he met a completely different thing, like, oh, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. I'm going to go get my own place. And then he'd tell somebody else, oh, I'm going to do this other thing. And, you know, he was just all over the place.
Yeah. Let's move on to this. You've mentioned this a couple times, that you said there might have been a witness, or maybe 100%, there was a witness to him, some rancher. You've brought this up. Let's talk a little more in depth about that. Did somebody actually see him at his truck that day? Is that what you're saying, or what?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, please
So
explain.
so there's ranchers that they have BLM rights for grazing, and it's springtime, and May 1st is when they can go in, and so they're moving equipment, getting ready for that. And there's a couple different access points, and there's one north of where Aidan's truck was, and they passed him. They were going north to take some equipment in, and they saw him, they said, standing at the back truck bed on the passenger side, and he looked calm, and like everything was okay. And they said people stop there a lot. It's not unusual to see people there because the shoulder gets really wide, and there's this weather station on the other side. So I don't know. It seems to draw people. People pull into the weather station, or they pull off to the other side, which is it's a good place to turn around. So they were surprised to see him the first time. You know, the sun was coming up, and or it was early morning, and sun was rising in the sky. And so then they went back down to the ranch and saw him, and he was going under the fence. And then you can see quite a ways down for quite a distance, and he was going back to the truck and back under the fence. And the last time they saw him, he had something black under his arm, and I imagine that was his black North Face coat. And so this was about 15, 20 minutes. So this was between 8:15 and 8, probably later than that, 8:20, 8 to 8:40, somewhere around there, 8:15, 8:35.
Okay. All right, so we do have this witness. The other thing I want to ask you about is, eventually you talked about earlier about the banking and how it's so weird, you get things at different times. Using his banking information, you were able to establish where he went between after he dropped his grandfather off on the highway until his truck was found. You were actually, through his banking, able to figure out where he spent the next 24 hours or however long it was, correct? Like up in other, whatever he bought, got gas, etc.
Yeah, that's when I don't think there was a receipt for the hotel either. In Reno, I think he was paying cash, but he after he dropped his grandfather off, after the Wendover gas station thing came in, something from Park Point, I believe it's Park Point, Utah. It's actually east of Salt Lake City. And the police asked me about that, and I think it was that he was in a manic state, and he just kept driving, and he didn't know what direction he was driving in. And I could tell from the receipt it was like a drink. It was like either some kind of bottled drink or maybe coffee or something.
Okay.
And so then I think he turned around. I think he knew he was headed in the wrong direction and got, or he didn't know where he was going. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he made a decision at that point. He was just driving.
Right. So you were able to pretty much, unless he paid cash for some other things you still don't know about to this day, but you were able to kind of trace his steps at least a little bit from after his grandfather last saw him until the truck was found by that NHP officer.
Yeah, and then another weird thing that showed up was that he had taken out $200 in cash, and it came right almost at the same time the Wendover one came in, but I found out later that, so I kept thinking it happened at the Wendover gas station, but, I'm in a state of mind for quite a while. When I went back in and looked at the records, I realized it was from Carson. No, it's that nearby town. He actually took it out. It's west of Elko. The Carlson. It's on 80, and I took a good look at that, and I was like, wait a minute, this isn't at Wendover. So he had taken out $200 in cash on the way before he got to Elko. And it's just the way things come through in banking. And,
Yeah.
I was panic. And so I realized he got $200 in probably so that he could get gas without me following him. Probably knew the bank was connected.
Okay.
And so, in retrospect, yes, he got money out, and I think it's Carlson, and then drove all the way to Utah, and then just kept driving to Parkside. I think it's called Parkside, and then got a drink, and apparently turned around and started coming to, coming west, and then went over, then the Motel 6,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think he meant to go north, which he was probably going to Washington. I mean, if that was real, if that's what his intention was with the map, my guess is he was going to Washington.
All right. But instead, he ended up south.
Yes.
He was going the opposite direction of Washington.
That is what his map, his iCloud map says, yes.
Okay.
That he intended to go one way and somehow went the other way.
Okay. Now I want to talk about we once again, because this is an audio format, I don't want to get too much more into the directions, everything, because it's just, once again, we'll have the pictures up, everybody can look at them. I just want to talk to you about 3 specific stories or important topics regarding searches that you've done out there. And in fact, just within the last couple weeks, you came back from a search in Nevada you told me about. And so there's 3 topics. Let's just start at least what I would consider to be the 3 stories that you told me that I think are most significant. Number 1, the footprints or shoe prints by a tree. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and why it was so significant to you?
Okay. And just really quick, I want to say how amazing the Nevada people are and the people who have come out there to help us, the Ruby Mountain Rebels.
Sure.
Every volunteer, amazing people who live at high altitude and can run circles around us. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Okay?
Yes, great.
I want to say that. So we went in, we had gone in, we went into a June search, a July search, and then we went back late August of 22. And we went out with some wonderful locals that got us back there with side-by-sides. And we did a search going in the North Road into the burn area, which is you'll see on the map there, if you look at the map, there's like a kidney bean-shaped area that is lighter colored, and that burnt down 20 years ago. Right. So no trees. And there's a road going directly north-south that goes right into that area. And so we were looking around there, and we had left and then gone back in, and we decided to, because when I was up on the side of the mountain, I turned around and what I saw north was Highway 93. You could see the semis and the cars. I mean, they were far away, but you could see them. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, that's where I would go. That's where I would go, not more southwest, like the police kept saying, we think he's gone southwest. So, and they were looking directly west, too. They weren't just, they were going up over the mountain and looking on the other side of the mountain. And so I said, let's look that way. Let's look north. And so we drove to the burn entrance, where the road comes out at the burn, and we went into the brush there, and then my sister went up on the ridge, and I kind of went in west and then turned north and started walking through the trees. And at first I didn't see anything, but about half an hour, 40 minutes, I'm just meandering through there looking, and I see some footsteps. And so I'm start looking all around, and then I saw up against this one tree these two, and these are definitive footsteps that are different from, we saw other tracks too, horse, boot, search and rescue boots, cowboy boots. Somebody was on a horse following these tracks, which are tennis shoe tracks, which are peanut shaped. They are peanut shaped, and they were the right size. And also remember, they were sunk into the ground. This is late August. There's no me and my sister are leaving no tracks. Nobody is leaving any tracks. The ground is baked hard. And I turned around and looked behind me. And so a lot of the tracks we were finding, they were baked into the ground. But when I got up to this one area and I saw it, there was just 2 shoes, peanut-shaped. They were sunk really far down, right up against this tree on the west side of the tree, and the burn would be east on the other side of that. And so it was almost like they were hiding because they were standing so still for such a long time, very close up against this tree. Now, if they had been moving a lot, there would have been other shoe marks. No other shoe marks. They sat there very still for an extended amount of time while their feet sunk over, I swear, like 3 or more inches into the ground. And there was even these marks in the center, like when you pull your foot out of mud, there's a suction in the middle. And so it pulls up all that mud in the middle of the shoe mark. And that was what it showed. So this person, and I believe it was Aiden, was standing there very still, very close up against this tree, not moving an inch for a long enough time for his feet to sink down in there. Then from that point, there were tracks going, they were headed northeast, and they went across this open wash, and then they went under the trees where there was all this debris, and I lost them. And I started looking for them again, and I couldn't find them. I don't know what happened, but my sister was telling me she could also see tracks up on the ridge. Same thing. She saw the horse tracks, the boot tracks of the person who was following the tracks. And a few points we both said he looked confused, like these tracks. It looked like he was wandering around in a small open area, like just kind of he would walk one direction and then go back and go into a different direction. She saw that as well. So, I mean, there's nobody else walking around during the wet season up there in tennis shoes like that up in the middle of,
Okay, so we have...
Sure that was it.
Yeah, we have this. Once again, we have a map, and once everybody sees the map that Amy has sent me, this spot is marked on that map, and it is really out in the middle of nowhere. Many miles from the highway. Let's move on to this. Now, the other interesting thing that you've told me is that even though this is a desolate area and everything, you've actually encountered quite a few people, just random people, while you've been out there, correct, over the last 2 years?
Yes. So BLM land can be accessed by anybody, and even if roads go through private property, it's all public roads. You can't get out of your car and get onto public property. So the road going in is on public property. Anybody can use that road, and then get on in BLM land. You can camp there for, I think, a few weeks, and then you have to move your tent like I don't know how many 100 feet, and anybody can go on BLM land. And so people go back there because it's at the very north end of the range. It's got at least 2 pretty good roads. I mean, I think the North Road is kind of horrendous. It's pretty hard in some points. Cottonwood Canyon is very accessible, and a lot of the locals know how accessible it is. And so when the weather clears up, they go back there. They take their razors, their side-by-sides, their vehicles, their all-terrain vehicle stuff, and go out and have fun. They go shed hunting in May. That's coming up. Shed hunting, where they look for elk and deer horns. People go out there and party. The sheriffs and also one of the ranchers' brothers said that they found evidence of somebody being in there the weekend before Aiden went in there. Flip-flops, beer cans over by the triangle. In between. In between the second and third range. And they were partying, and they can go out there and have fun and have total privacy because there's nobody out there. And so, but you do see people, ride up, and you see trucks out there. When we were camping out there last May, a year ago, we were camping out there. Towards the end, we were seeing all kinds of people coming in, camping, people driving in. You'd wave to them. Not a lot of people, but like a couple people. Sometimes maybe a couple people the whole time you're out there. Sometimes a couple times a day, you see people. And there's only been like once or twice when we haven't seen anybody.
I guess the point is, you're out there looking, of course, for your son, looking for any traces of him. You're encountering these people. So I guess maybe we have to be open to the idea that maybe there were people who might have encountered him as well.
Well, I would
What
be
do
really
you think about that?
Well, that's something I've thought about, and it's terrifying and everything. I mean, it's that, and it's that possibility is both encouraging and terrifying. And like they said, it was the weekend before, and I kind of, I'm wondering about that exact date. And because they go in and clean up, the ranchers, they keep those places clean. Other people come in and mess it all up. And yeah, I've thought about that. But also, he was very paranoid, but he might have been desperate enough to get a ride out.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and a lot of the people that we saw also were like I'd say half the time, maybe a third of the time, were ranchers. So we see the ranch trucks come in. We met the one rancher and his work hands. They came in one night. We saw the one rancher, his truck in there quite a bit, and his one helper, the black truck, and so we knew them by sight, and we would see them quite a bit. So sometimes we were seeing ranchers, and you could tell, like, the recreational people, they would, they were just doing different stuff.
Okay.
Ranchers are driving through looking at cattle and stuff. You could tell. And so, yes, yes, that prospect, has kind of a double effect on me.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that even though this is some of the most desolate area of the lower 48 of the United States, that when you've gone out there, you have encountered people. So we might be open to the idea, once again, whether it means bad things or not, that he's out there. We have the footprints. He's going all over this area. That it's not something where he's going off to the middle of nowhere where nobody is. In fact, you're in the same areas where he was, and you were encountering people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Just want to make sure, because I don't want anybody to take credit. Well, he's out in the middle of nowhere and nobody else is out there. That's not quite true.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. I was just going to say that even though it's like really desolate out there, it's a kind of a close knit community in a way. I mean, everybody kind of knows everybody, even though they live in little teeny towns, 10 miles away from each other. The population is low enough that they all know each other. A lot of them have lived there their whole lives. They know they've been on this mountain, that mountain. People, so a lot of the locals are familiar with that northern end of the Cherry Creek Range, and they know it's a good place to go out and do, in their vehicles, in their off-road vehicles. So.
Okay. Now, the final story is something regarding the searches, is something that just happened very recently, and this has to do with a Gatorade or Powerade bottle. Why don't you tell the listeners about that?
So we started doing grid searches along that north road, and we did look through that whole area where the footsteps were found by me and my sister, and we had them search that whole area again, as it is reported many times that missing persons are found in areas that have already been searched. So they went all through that area again, and I know a couple guys went a little bit further because we were using some of the statistics off of a virtual missing persons predictive behavior pattern, which is that people are often found off about 65 yards off of any kind of path. So a road, a two-path road like an RV, a site, recreational vehicle track, an animal tracks. So I told them, if you're out there looking and you find animal tracks, go, 65 yards from that. So they went a little bit further than that, and they found under a clump of trees a perfectly preserved Powerade bottle, a grape flavored one, and it was in pristine condition because the sun never shone on it. You leave any other bottle out there for a month and it's just bleached white,
for sure.
And so the person who found it had the presence of mind to wear gloves, put it in a plastic bag. He saw the numbers on it, the date on it, May 22, and we thought, oh my gosh, that's the expiration date, and this was just north of the area of where Aidan's those footsteps in the trees sunk into the ground were just like due north of that. So I know that you can get some information from numbers on bottles, and so coincidentally, Coca-Cola makes Powerade, and so I called the corporate number and I talked to them, and when I looked closely at the bottle, it said May 22, 23, and then like ABG2. So there was a 3-letter code and another number, but it was actually the expiration date was the 23rd, and I think we saw that out there too, but we didn't know how long the expiration date was. We thought maybe it's a year, So I called and they had to get me around to somebody who could tell me about it, and they said that it was actually manufactured not too far from where I live in American Canyon, in California, and that it left the plant August of 22. Wait, what did they say? Yeah, I believe August. Yeah, so it wasn't even produced until August of 22.
All right.
So it was too late. It was. But what's funny is that we did see some people that day that we were in there, and it makes me think might have been them.
Maybe. But you were thinking, I think at the time you found it, maybe we can figure this out. Maybe it was something Aidan left there, but the bottle hadn't even been made until after he went missing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It wasn't even manufactured until August of 22, so that was really disappointing. But I also noted that it was grape flavored, and my son never really drank anything grape. But I thought, well, who knows? What was available? Maybe something. You just don't know if your favorite flavors there or not. But unfortunately, that was off by a few months. But then I remembered that we had seen some young men in there that day, and it possibly was them. I mean, it was right near where we were looking, where we saw them. And so maybe they were in there, I don't know, hunting, looking for something, and it's just strange that it was in the same exact vicinity, like exactly north of where we found those tracks.
Okay. I know this is I ask this question of every guest, so I'm going to ask it of you, but I think everybody has heard your voice over the course of these 2 hours, and I just got to ask you, because that's what I do, how tough has the last 2 years been?
Well, it's been devastating. It's the worst thing I've ever been through. The first several months, I was like non-functioning. I couldn't function. Like I suffer from PTSD because of the whole thing that was happening, and I'm trying to grasp at my son, and he is slipping through my fingers, and I'm calling everybody, and I can't do it fast enough, and one of the hotel ladies, I couldn't understand what people were saying to me. I wasn't processing it. And when people asked me something, I was, I apologize to everybody out there that I snapped to, because I just couldn't handle having to tell people things over, I couldn't process stuff. Okay, and this one lady that I ran into again a year or so later at one of the hotels we stayed at, she said, "I just wanted to give you a hug." She says, "You were like," she goes, "for lack of a better word, you were like zombified. You were, I was shell shocked. I was in emotional and mental shock, and I lost a lot of weight, and I couldn't eat or sleep for I can't tell you how many months and months and months and months. I was, and I had to go back to work after a while, and that was super difficult, and it was surreal for me to go back into a situation like that, and I still have, I still suffer from PTSD, and sometimes I just burst into tears. I have really bad days. Some days are much better, and I'm functioning and I'm productive, and other days it's not like that. But every day I try to get something done. I try to move forward. Every day, if it's even one thing, I try to move forward. So it's been, I've kept a candle burning for Aiden every day at home. I have a picture of him, and I keep a candle. I've been to the dollar store a lot, and I've probably bought, I don't know how many candles. And I pray all the time that I wake up and that this is the day that he calls me, somebody calls me, that he's found. I just, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. And it's devastating. It changes your life. It's changed forever. It's never going to be the same. You're never going to have, that the life that you had before is kind of, that's always going to be gone. You're living a different kind of life now.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's your life is forever changed, and some people are lucky enough to get closure. There's a lot of people out there still no closure.
Right.
And sometimes decades later. And so I'm trying to keep going, so that I can keep looking for him. That is my one purpose in life now. That's it.
What are your plans for the rest? Of course, we're doing this interview on April 28th of 2024. I should say almost to the exact day, one day later. Then that was not planned, at least not by me, to do this interview on this particular day, knowing it was one day after his disappearance date of 2022. But what are your plans for the rest of 2024 to go back out to Nevada to search again, or what are your plans?
Well, we have exhausted, I have exhausted every monetary source that I and so has family and friends. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've put, every time we go out there, all of the resources, the supplies, everything, it's just like, if we are at a point now where we're going to have to wait. But we also are searching without, because of what you said, because there's people going in there.
Yeah.
Because we could have made it to the road.
Right.
It's possible. There was water there. And if he had turned around and gotten back out of there fast enough. So there was a sighting in Salt Lake City that looked strikingly like Aiden. And I don't know if I sent you. Do you have that photo?
I think you did send to me. You sent me quite a bit. So probably it's probably yes.
Yeah. So there was they took a side picture and it looked a lot. There were a lot. Oh my gosh, it was so close, but it was backlit, it was blurry. So that's when we started looking. And when we found those tracks down that close to that North Road, definitely looking like his tracks. And then and we thought he might get out. Then we started looking in other places, beach areas. We went down to Santa Cruz. There was somebody who contacted the family member up in Washington, and they were from part of the homeless community in Sacramento. We went up there. We looked for him along the encampments, along the rivers and stuff. we we want to go up to Northern California now. He was also he's got some favorite spots like around Arcata and Eureka. We're going to go up there. So when we're in this stage, and before we can garner some more resources, financial resources, we go into these areas like that and start looking for them. And we've made business cards because they're easier to hand to people. People are more likely to put that in their purse, in their wallet, and if they see somebody, they're able to pull it out instead of this big sheet. They're just, that's going to sit home. And we have our QR code on it so that people can get to his Facebook page and get to his other social media. And so, that's what we do now. So we're going to be going to beach communities in Northern California probably first, and some other communities up that way. And then we're just working on getting the next one together, but we're probably not going to be able to get back out there this summer. And there's only a short time between, after, like, we went out 1 October, and it was 71 degrees the day before.
Yeah.
Family member traveled all the way from Florida, drove 14
Wow.
hours. Then they got snowed out in an hour and a half.
Oh my. Yep, that's Nevada for you. Northern Nevada. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to go between. We were praying this time that the weather was holding out. We really just threw a dart at the calendar. And before, what we would do is we would watch the weather and say, please stay tuned for when the search is going to be. And of course, we couldn't get that many searchers because they planned, they have lives. This time we planned it 3 months out in advance, and it worked. We had a much bigger team, and so, but we were at the mercy of the weather. It could have been horrible, and we could have been washed out again. So it's just luck.
Right. Do you have a Facebook page, website, anything like that set up for Aidan's disappearance? If so, why don't you tell the listeners about it right now?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook page, Help Find Aidan Clune. We have a backup one, which is Find Aidan Clune. Those are both Facebook pages. We have You Seen Aidan Clune on TikTok.
Okay.
So there's link trees to all of these too. Link trees so that you can go to all of them. He's on Instagram. That's not one we do a lot of. We have a GoFundMe, and we also have made necklaces for it's MHM, Mental Health Mercy, and on the back side it's engraved with call 988 for an emergency. If you're having a mental health crisis, and it's a guitar pick. It's in the shape of a guitar pick, and we're selling them. What's that?
Interesting. Yeah, that's creative. Yes.
Yeah, and we're selling those for like $20 to raise money for him. And I think I don't know if I have it on his Help Find Aidan Clune, but I'll get it on there. We have had a couple of sales through Facebook, and that's been good. But I'd like to step that up, But it's to help people. We've given a lot of them away to people who have come out and helped us search. We've given them to homeless people, young men, and who look like they need some help. We take the one that we have on, and we just take it off, and we say, we tell them the story and say, if you need help, and we carry around socks in our cars, and when we're around these communities, socks are golden. They need socks, and everybody, if you want to do something nice for homeless people, bring them socks. I just bought a bunch of women's stuff. Yeah, they need socks besides cash. If I'm in a fast food place and I'm getting food and I see a homeless person, I'm like, what do you want? I'm getting you some food. And, I just try to help people because I really feel like, a lot of people this is a rough time right now in America, and we really need to, in our community, be in care for people who are suffering. There's a lot. And I just want to be a part of making. I can't do a lot, but I just do what I can. That's what I do. Even if I have $2 or $3, I just give it to them. I do what I can. People need help.
They do. Amy, any final words before we complete this interview?
Yeah, I'd say thank you to everybody who's helped us. So many people have helped us. So many people. It's really been incredible. People on social media, my mods who've helped me do TikTok, people who have helped make the posters. Jasmia, she's amazing. She helps with posters for a lot of people. Everybody in Elko. And for people to be gentle with each other and not, it's time for people to start helping each other, being kind to each other. And you don't know what, a lot of people are going through a rough time now. And so let's be kind and compassionate to each other. I think that's what we need right now. We need a stronger communities. I wanted to thank you as well for having me on and letting me talk tonight about Aidan's story. Thank you. And raise awareness about his case. I appreciate it very much.
You're very welcome. And I appreciate you being on this episode of Unfound.
Great. Thank you.
And that was my April 28th, 2024 interview with Amy Clune, mother of Aidan Clune. I thank her for joining me and all of you on this episode. As I stated in the interview, Amy provided me with extensively detailed maps to show where she and many others have searched over the past 2 years. In addition, on those maps are marked specific unique spots that caught searchers' attentions. Please find those pictures on Unfound's Facebook page, in the Facebook discussion group, and on Unfound's website, theunfoundpodcast.com. I have also turned those pictures into a video that can now be found on Unfound's YouTube channel. You really need to see the pictures to see how desolate this area is and how determined all the searchers have been in trying to find Aidan. As I was preparing to feature Aidan's disappearance, I was reminded of a TV episode, a YouTube video, something along those lines, that I watched within the past 6 months regarding the Death Valley Germans. These were 2 adults and 2 children from Germany, all tourists, whose abandoned rented minivan was found in Death Valley in 1996. None of the 4 could be found in the immediate area. Initially, of course, all sorts of theories spread. Did the man kill his girlfriend and the children and take off to start a new life in the United States? Did the family come across a killer or killers in the area and the van was dumped there? And yes, another idea was that they had taken a wrong turn somehow. The van got stuck and the 4 had to try to walk for it. Not until 2009, 13 years later, was that last theory proven to be true. The adults' remains were found over 10 miles away. However, the children are still missing. The belief is that they were all trying to make it to a nearby military base, but succumbed to the harsh conditions first. I think you can see why this all came to mind while thinking about Aidan's disappearance. Yet, there are big differences. The Germans seemingly had acted in a rational manner in going for help, although they were unsuccessful, although it still took 13 years to find them. Whereas Aidan had been acting in an irrational manner, and his tracks did not show him going toward potential help. In fact, they were haphazard, with Aidan seemingly not having any particular destination in mind. This could lead us to believe Aidan suffered the same fate as the Germans. On the other hand, despite the rumors in the German case, there were no people out there besides those 4. thus making an attack or abduction or murder scenario highly unlikely. Whereas with Aiden, Amy herself said that she and many other searchers have encountered all different types of people over the past 2 years. And I will say it here, just like I said it in the interview. If the searchers ran into random people, then we must be open to the idea that Aiden ran into the same types of people. Or more directly, they encountered him. And if he were in the same state of mind that he had with his grandfather, then really anything is possible. And none of it good. I hope you all spend some time concerning the possibilities of Aiden's disappearance and keep your minds very open. But I know how doing so can put you in some emotional places. So please be careful to not allow the contemplating to send you into your own spiral. If you'd like to hear and read more of my analysis into the disappearance of Aidan Clune, please go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, sign up, and partake in the Unfound blog. Until then, I leave the public theorizing up to you. And that's the program. Right now, while you are in your podcast platform, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever, give Unfound a 5-star review, a thumbs up, whatever that platform allows. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Denzel, and you've just finished this episode of Unfound.